Imagine walking into a luxury car dealership and seeing Snoop Dogg dressed casually, completely underestimated. What happens next will leave you speechless. Stick around to witness how this unexpected story unfolds. But before we dive in, tell us in the comments, what's your favorite Snoop Dogg song? We can't wait to hear your picks. The sun was just beginning to set over Los Angeles, painting the city skyline with hues of orange and pink. Inside the high-end car dealership Velvet Motors, the air buzzed with anticipation. Salespeople in sharp suits and polished shoes paced the gleaming showroom, ready to pounce on their next big commission. Velvet Motors prided itself on catering to the city's elite celebrities, CEOs, and anyone else with a bank account, as shiny as their cars. A man walked through the front doors, his figure framed by the golden light of the setting sun. He was tall, his posture relaxed, dressed in an oversized black hoodie, joggers, and sneakers that had seen better days. A pair of aviator sunglasses obscured his eyes, and his long braids peeked out from under a baseball cap. The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, glanced up from her desk and smiled politely. Before she could offer her rehearsed welcome, a veteran salesman named Jack stepped forward, his eyes narrowing at the new arrival. Jack had been with Velvet Motors for over a decade and considered himself the gatekeeper of the dealership's exclusivity. "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" Jack's tone was polite, but his body language screamed suspicion. The man removed his sunglasses, revealing a pair of sharp, observant eyes. He smiled faintly.
"I'm here to buy a car."
His voice was smooth, with an unmistakable air of confidence. Jack glanced at the man's attire, his lips curling slightly. "Are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't exactly the Honda dealership down the road." The man's smile didn't waver.
Sure.
"I'm looking for something special, maybe a Bentley or a Roll." Jack raised an eyebrow, his skepticism thinly veiled. "Those are premium vehicles, sir. Perhaps I can show you something a bit more practical?" Before the man could respond, a young salesperson named Lucas approached. Lucas was new to the dealership, eager to prove himself, and his eyes lit up at the prospect of a sale. "Hi there," Lucas said with genuine enthusiasm. "What kind of features are you looking for? Maybe I can help you find the perfect match." Jack shot Lucas a warning glance, but stepped aside, muttering something under his breath about wasted time. The man's smile grew slightly. "Appreciated, young blood. I'm thinking about something sleek, maybe black on black. Got any Bentleys in stock?" Lucas nodded quickly. "Absolutely. Let me show you one of our latest Continental GTs. It's a beauty." Jack watched from a distance, shaking his head. "That kid's gonna learn the hard way," he muttered to Sarah, who looked visibly uncomfortable. Lucas led the man to a stunning black Bentley parked in the center of the showroom. The car's sleek lines and flawless finish reflected the overhead lights, creating an almost ethereal glow. "This here is the Bentley Continental GT," Lucas began, his voice tinged with excitement. 6-liter W12 engine, 626 horsepower, top speed of 207 miles per hour. It's luxury and performance wrapped into one. The man ran his fingers along the edge of the car, his touch gentle but deliberate. "It's beautiful," he said. "How much we talkin'?" Lucas hesitated. He'd been trained to ease customers into the price discussion, but something about this man made him feel like he could be direct. "Starting price is $245,000, but with the custom options on this model, it's closer to $310,000. The man nodded thoughtfully, as if weighing the number in his mind. "And if I wanted it today, what's the process?" Lucas's eyes widened slightly. "Well, we'd need to go over financing options, or if you're paying outright, we'd handle the paperwork and delivery schedule. But first, I'd need to run a credit check." Jack, who had been lingering nearby, couldn't hold back any longer. He strode over, his polished shoes clicking against the showroom floor. "Credit check? Are you serious, Lucas? This gentleman clearly—" Jack paused, his eyes scanning the man up and down. "Doesn't meet the profile of someone ready to buy a 300 car." Lucas's face flushed with embarrassment. "Jack, I was just explaining the process." The man's calm demeanor finally shifted, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Jack smirked. "No problem, just being realistic. These cars are for serious buyers. Maybe we can direct you to something more in your range. A pre-owned model, perhaps?" The tension in the room was palpable. A few customers had stopped to watch the interaction, their curiosity piqued. Lucas shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to salvage the situation. Sarah, still seated at her desk, looked as if she wanted to disappear. The man's lips curled into a faint smile, but his eyes remained sharp. "Tell you what," he said, pulling out his phone. Jack rolled his eyes. "Sure, call whoever you want. Maybe they can spot you a few $100,000. Lucas's jaw tightened, and he opened his mouth to protest. But the man held up a hand to stop him. He dialed a number and stepped away, his voice low but firm as he spoke into the phone. Jack crossed his arms, watching with a smug expression. Minutes later, the front doors of the dealership swung open, and a sharply dressed man in a tailored suit entered. He carried a sleek leather briefcase and walked with purpose, his gaze locking onto the man in the hoodie. "Mr. Broaddus," the newcomer said, his voice crisp and professional. "I have the documents you requested." Jack's smirk faltered. "Documents?" he echoed, his tone uncertain. The man in the hoodie turned back to Jack, his faint smile returning. "Yeah, documents. See, I just bought this place last month. Thought I'd stop by and see how things are running." Jack's face drained of color as realization dawned. Sarah let out an audible gasp, and Lucas's eyes widened in shock. The other customers, sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary, began whispering among themselves. The silence in the showroom was deafening. Jack's previously smug demeanor had evaporated, replaced by a pale, shell-shocked expression. It was as if the ground beneath him had shifted, leaving him unsteady and unsure of his footing. The weight of his actions, the snide remarks, the outright condescension of it. Lucas, on the other hand, looked as if he'd just stumbled upon the opportunity of a lifetime. His initial shock gave way to a mixture of awe and excitement as he realized who he had been speaking to. Mr. Broaddus, rather. Snoop Dogg was not just any customer. He was the new owner of Velvet Motor. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she reached for a pen on her desk, trying to compose herself. She avoided making eye contact with Jack, whose humiliation was almost palpable. The customers who had been observing the exchange now murmured among themselves, their voices tinged with a mix of disbelief and amusement. Snoop Dogg, still clad in his casual hoodie and joggers, turned his attention back to the suited man who had brought the briefcase. "Everything in order?" he asked, his tone calm but authoritative. The man in the suit nodded. "Yes, sir. The transfer of ownership is finalized. You have full control of the dealership, effective immediately." Snoop nodded, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. He glanced around the room. "Good. Now, let's see how this place really works." Jack finally found his voice, though it was shaky and uncertain. "Mr. Broaddus, I had no idea. If I'd known who you were, I would never have." He trailed off, his words hanging awkwardly in the air. Snoop turned to face him, his expression. "That's the problem, isn't it? You shouldn't treat people differently based on who you think they are. Whether I'm just some guy off the street or the owner of this place, respect shouldn't be op." The room fell silent again as Snoop's words sank in. Jack looked down at his polished shoes, his usual confidence shattered. He opened his mouth to speak, but Snoop held up a hand, cutting. "Save it," Snoop said, his tone firm but not unkind. "Speak louder than you've shown me what kind of person you are. And it's not the kind of person I want representing my business." Jack's face turned bright red as the meaning of Snoop's words became clear. Snoop shrugged. "Call it what you want, but yeah, you're done here. Pack up your stuff." The departure of Jack left the showroom in a stunned silence that was quickly replaced by a hushed buzz of activity. Snoop Dogg stood in the center of the room, his calm yet commanding presence drawing every eye. Sarah shifted nervously at her desk, unsure of what was to come, while Lucas's excitement continued to grow. Breaking the silence, Snoop turned to Lucas.
Boy!
Young blood. You stepped up when no one else did. Lucas blinked, momentarily startled. Before responding, Lucas, well, Lucas, let's take this ride for a spin. Show me how you'd close a deal with someone like me if you knew who I was from the... Lucas hesitated briefly before nodding. Absolutely, Mr. Broad. He led Snoop toward the Bentley once more, his voice regaining confidence as he began explaining the finer details of the car's features. Snoop listened intently, occasionally nodding or asking pointed questions. The exchange felt more like a mentoring session than a sales pitch, with Snoop subtly testing Lucas's knowledge and instinct. Meanwhile, Sarah quietly observed the interaction from behind her desk. For the first time since she'd started working at Velvet Motors, she felt a spark of maybe, just maybe, things would be different under new management. Taking a deep breath, she stood and approached Snoop just as Lucas finished his pitch. Mr. Broadus, Sarah began, her voice steady despite her nerves. I wanted to thank you for addressing what happened earlier. Jack's behavior, it's been a problem for a while. Snoop turned to her, his expression softening slightly. What's your name? Sarah. Well, Sarah, I appreciate you saying that. But let's not just talk about problems, let's fix them. Tell me, if you were running this place, what would you... Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the directness of the question. After a brief pause, she answered honestly. I'd focus more on treating every customer with respect, regardless of their opinion. And I'd make sure the staff felt valued, so they'd be motivated to represent the dealership in the best way possible. Snoop nodded thoughtfully. That's solid. I like the way you... He glanced around the showroom before addressing both Sarah and Lucas. Looks like we've got some work to do. You two up for the challenge? Lucas and Sarah exchanged a glance before responding in unison. Yes, sir. Snoop grinned. Good. Let's make this place something special. The departure of Jack marked a turning point in the atmosphere at Velvet Motors. The tension that had once defined the showroom began to dissipate, replaced by a buzz of anticipation. Lucas and Sarah, invigorated by Snoop's leadership, exchanged a glance of determination as they prepared to embrace the dealership's new direction. Snoop turned to face the remaining staff, his presence commanding yet approachable. All right, team, he began, his voice steady and authoritative. Let's talk about what this place is going to be from now on. He gestured toward the gleaming cars that lined the showroom floor. These cars, they're just machines. What really makes this place special is how we treat the people who walk through those doors. Every single one of them deserves respect, whether they're buying a Bentley or just looking around. Sarah, emboldened by Snoop's words, stepped forward. Mr. Broadus, I think we should start by revisiting our customer service, maybe even implement a mentorship program for new hires, so they learn how to treat every customer with care and professionalism. Snoop nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. I like that, Sarah. Let's make it happen. He turned to Luke. And you, young blood, you've got potential. How'd you like to head up the mentorship program? Lucas's eyes widened in surprise, but he quickly nodded. I'd be honored. Good, Snoop said. You're going to do... Over the next few weeks, the changes at Velvet Motors were swift and transformative. The staff underwent extensive customer service training, focusing on empathy and respect. Sarah and Lucas worked closely with Snoop to develop a mentorship program, ensuring that every new hire was equipped with the tools and mindset needed to succeed. Word of the dealership's transformation began to spread, drawing in customers who had once been wary of its exclusivity. Velvet Motors quickly became known not just for its luxury cars, but for its welcoming and inclusive environment. Snoop's vision of respect and equality had become the foundation of the business, and it resonated with everyone who walked through the door. On a busy Saturday afternoon, Snoop stood near the entrance of the showroom, watching as Lucas expertly guided a customer through the features of a sleek Rolls-Royce. Sarah, now the dealership's manager, coordinated with the staff to ensure that every customer was attended to promptly. A familiar face entered the dealership, drawing murmurs from the staff. It was Jack, looking hesitant and somewhat disheveled. He approached Snoop cautiously, his head bowed slightly. Mr. Broadus, he began, his voice tinged with regret. I wanted to apologize for how I acted before. I let my ego get the best of me, and I wasn't the person I should. Snoop studied Jack for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, Jack, I appreciate you coming back and owning up to your mistake. But respect isn't just about words said. You'll have to prove that you've changed before I can even think about bringing you back. Jack nodded, his shoulders slumping slightly.
I understand.
As Jack left the showroom, Snoop turned back to the bustling dealership, a sense of pride washing over him. Velvet Motors had become more than just a business. It was a reflection of the values he held dear. And as the doors swung open to welcome the next customer, Snoop knew that this was just the beginning of something truly special. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more inspiring and captivating tales of transformation and redemption, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the upcoming stories that will inspire, entertain, and surprise you.